Let's get you more perspective now on this year's African Union Summit theme, and particularly the whole question of corruption and how that is affecting the entire continent. I'm joined live here by Professor Emmanuel Nnadozie. He's the Executive Secretary of the African Capacity Building Foundation. He's also an economist and development expert. Professor Nnadozie, thank you for joining us on the program. Now, the theme of this year's African Union Summit is corruption. The continent has been grappling with it. We've seen the repercussion of corruption on the continent. How confident are you, or how encouraged are you by the theme of this year's summit?
I'm extremely encouraged by the theme of the summit for a number of reasons. First is that it takes a lot of courage for the African leaders to actually decide to discuss and confront this issue in such an arena. So we must congratulate them for the courage they have demonstrated in that. Secondly, because corruption is everywhere in the world, but many African countries are grappling with it, and it has significant impact on their ability to really improve the welfare of their citizens, to make progress on the economic and social front, or even fight terrorism. Therefore, it's very important that this issue be given the sort of attention it deserves, and because sometimes it's not just a national issue; it becomes a transboundary issues like illicit outflows or money laundering and criminal activities that are involved in corruption. So discussing it as such a platform makes a lot of sense.
Well, corruption is not the only issue that is going to be discussed here. Democratization is also coming in. How do the two go hand in hand, corruption and democratization?
Well, they're extremely linked. They are because fight against corruption requires a very, very strong and visionary leadership that is accountable. And for such a leadership to emerge, it will be a leadership that is chosen, that is accountable to the people. And this is what democracy can present. Democracy also furnishes you with two other institutions that are important in the fight against corruption, namely the parliament and the judiciary. And so if you have a system of democracy that works very well, a system of transparency and accountability are likely to be reinforced and to be existing in the country. And this will normally help in the fight against corruption. It doesn't mean that without democracy you cannot fight corruption, but it means that it provides a platform that enhances accountability and transparency.
So from your organization's perspective, though, how would the African Union and the African Union, the African leaders what would they need to do to bridge the capacity deficit that is hurting the continent?
Yes. I think we have done the first thing as ACBF, the African Capacity Building Foundation, which, as you know, has now become a specialized agency of the African Union to spearhead capacity development in the continent, in supporting Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. So the very first thing that we'll do is we have done a survey, we have done an analysis of the capacity necessary for Africa to achieve the first 10-year plan of its Agenda 2063, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals. As you know, this has never been done before, and that is part of the reason why some of the initiatives of the past were never quite implemented as expected. So we have done this assessment, and we know exactly the kind of skills that are needed, the kind of capacities in leadership, in institutions that are required for Agenda 2063 to be successful. Now we are developing programs to address this skills gaps and these capacity gaps, and we have to implement them. So this is what has to happen, working together with the African Union, with the RECs, with the multilateral partners, and the countries themselves to really start addressing these challenges and these capacity gaps. Once these capacity gaps are addressed, we are confident that we can make a lot of progress in achieving these development goals of the continent.
All right, Professor Emmanuel Nnadozie, thank you very much for your insights on that crucial topic of corruption. Of course, as you've heard there, the theme of this year's 30th African Union Summit is corruption.